Hi everyone, it's Ian here again, and I've been asked by some people to actually comment on the video that you see behind me. It's a video by a guy called Markus on YouTube, and it's got about 1.5 million views. So it must be important to some people. I spent quite a bit of time looking at it. I actually downloaded it and looked at a transcript of it, and I have to say that there's some very good points in here which, as far as I'm concerned, advance the ideas that we have about alkaline water. It's called the acid alkaline truth exposed, the alkaline myth and hype. So it's a kind of a heading that will get people involved. But I think it's important to understand what's really happening here. There has been an evolution of consciousness about alkaline water over, well, I go back 18 years to the year 2000 when we began distributing alkaline water units in Australia. At that time, nobody even thought about alkaline. If you went into a health store, you wouldn't see alkaline. Today, it's everywhere. So things have changed in that respect, and one would hope that they would. In the early days, the manufacturers, the alkaline machines, claimed all sorts of things. You know, basically it's the elixir of eternal life. This was backed up to some degree by the writings of Dr. Robert O. Young, who claimed we are alkaline by design, acid by default, or something like that. It was a very catchy way of saying it. But what he was actually saying was, we are fully alkaline. That's how we're supposed to be. And Markus and his friend James in this video challenged that. And I would have to say that I agree with them, because if you look at the body, virtually every external surface we have, our skin, the external surface being the inside of our mouth, our esophagus, our lower intestine, all treated as external surfaces, are acidic. There are acidic factors at work in our body which do something very important, and the acid is used as an antibacterial. A very simple example which James, Markus's friend, brings up is the idea of using alkaline soap. We all use alkaline soap. Why? When your skin actually has an acid mantle to kill the bacteria that comes. Doesn't make sense, and you can actually now get acid soaps, but by tradition we still use alkaline soap. So I'm not agreeing with everything that Markus and James say, but what I am saying is that they represent an evolution of thought. Unfortunately, this is my opinion, so take it as you like. They've got a little bit involved in their arguments. This is James. James is the so-called medical expert in the video. He's had apparently 13 years in the medical field. I'm not sure what that means. But James makes the point that there isn't one pH in the body. There are many pHs in the different organs, etc. And his point, which is the fundamental aspect of this whole video, is that the body is always able to adjust its own pH, and the breath is the major way it does this. By breathing deeply, we can alkalize immediately. And you know, that is difficult for people selling anything because breathing's free. So he goes on to speak about all the various things that can happen in the body if you over-alkalize. But here's where I do have a little problem, James, and that is that he keeps talking about the damage alkaline can do to you. He doesn't talk about the fact that drinking alkaline water is actually a very low dose of alkalinity. He doesn't reference any studies to support what he says. And look, I've heard this stuff for 18 years. Way back then I had the pleasure of meeting Sang Wang, who wrote Reverse Aging, a lovely Korean-American guy. And Sang Wang exposed this whole thing about if I drink alkaline water I'll neutralize my stomach acid. Well, again, it would depend, of course, on how alkaline the water. And what I'd suggest is, given that the strength of the acid you have in your stomach, you probably couldn't drink the alkaline water anyway, because it'd have to be too strong to change the pH of the stomach acid. But there's another important point here, and Markus's main reason, as he said in the video, for doing this was to help other people to understand why they shouldn't buy an electronic ionizer, which he bought 6 years ago from the big MLM company. Now, very few people realise, even today, because the MLM companies are still saying it's alkaline water, that an electronic water alkalizer doesn't actually alkalinize the water. It doesn't add alkaline minerals. So let's get this really clear. Real alkaline water has alkaline minerals in it, okay? So if you use tap water, which already has, let's say, 1 milligram of alkaline minerals in it, and you put it through your water ionizer, where does it go? It comes out the other end. Is anything added to it? No. So you've actually got the same alkaline content as you had in your tap water at the start. What it does do, and very effectively, if not deceptively, is it increases the pH of the water. Now the pH of the water is not the same as the alkalinity of the water, and this can be very easily proved. If you were able to pull some stomach acid out, or use a couple of drops of citric acid and take one of your glasses of water from an electronic ionizer, put some reagent in it to see what colour it is, and it might be a lovely purple. Drop a couple of drops of citric acid, or stomach acid if you can, into the water. It will neutralise the whole thing. So a whole glass of water is neutralised by a couple of drops of citric acid. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. James goes on to talk about the effect of alkaline water in the body, but he doesn't seem to take into account the very, very low level of alkalinity. When I heard this at the start, and this was, as I said, 18 years ago, it was very hard for me, because I realised that, hey, I'm selling this stuff and maybe it's dangerous. So what I did was took the time to find someone who knew more about it. And my friend Dr. Jerry Brady, a GP, is what I call a water aficionado. He travels the world every year. He loves water. He loves particularly Italy, where in Italy they'll sit down to 3 meals a day with alkaline water on the table. And I said to him, well, how? It must mean there's a bad effect. He said, no, there is no effect. The Italians drink it by the millions every day, and there isn't a problem. He also pointed me to a study, and it was actually a meta-study of 100 different scientific studies collated and compared of the effect of alkaline water around the world. Now, in these 100 studies, which went all the way from Taiwan to Finland, studies where they looked at the pH or alkalinity of the water were correlated with the health effects of the people who drank that sort of water. And it was absolutely conclusively proved that people who drank more alkaline water in the form of calcium and magnesium in the water had a higher longevity, and they also had a lesser exposure to extreme disease. So as far as I was concerned, great, it's done. Now, Markus responds to statistics and science by saying you can't take any notice of science, everybody can fiddle the science, don't worry about PhDs, you make your own mind up, and besides, blah blah blah, which is very convenient for the argument, but doesn't take into account the simple fact that science is, okay? And even if you don't like scientists, even if you don't like big pharma, even if you think that all scientific studies are skewed, the basic element of scientific work is that a thing is proven until unproven, and this is the way scientific studies work. They put them up, they are reviewed. They may fall apart or they may stand based on their truth, as reviewed by maybe even thousands of scientists. So, I understand that in the days of the internet, it's easy to stand up and say, no, look, that's all bunk. And if you're convincing enough and you do a good enough video, people will listen to you. What I don't understand about James and Markus's approach is that We need alkaline minerals. There isn't any doubt about that. We need alkaline minerals because we have what is called an alkaline buffer in our body. The alkaline buffer is a storehouse in our blood of alkaline minerals. Okay? If we don't have that buffer available when we have an acid attack, you know, a huge stake or a lot of stress or some extreme pollution or the many things that is now shown to create acid in our bodies, even our own metabolic acidic waste. If we don't have an alkaline reserve, an alkaline buffer, how do you expect the acid to be neutralised? And what if it's not neutralised? If it's not neutralised, the body does have a strategy. It grabs all the fat it can, it deposits fat and it stores it in your fat, so your fat in your body becomes a toxic waste dump. And this is why when people get rid of fat, they'll often have really serious detox problems, because the acids in all their various toxic forms are in the fat. Okay, so bottom line, you need calcium, magnesium, potassium, sodium, at least, there are others, in your body at all times, so that if you have an acid attack, you can forestall this emergency strategy that the body does. James and Markus have not talked about that. In my personal experience, you know, I drank electronic ionized water for 12 years. I studied the alkaline diet. I looked at how do we actually get those minerals in and how do we keep them there. I went to the recommended alkaline foods, which are supposed to be high in alkalis. I looked them up, I checked how many alkalis are in them, and I was very surprised at the very low amount of alkaline minerals in these foods, to the point where, one example from Dr. Robert O. Young, he suggested that you eat 9 serves of kale in a day. Well, I'm not going to do that, okay? But I do want my alkaline reserves kept up, and you don't need a lot. So what I do is I take my alkaline booster every day, which consists of the 4 alkaline salts. I take a flat teaspoon of it, and I have my alkaline booster going all the time. It's that simple. It doesn't have to be complex. Now, James and Markus's video talks a lot about a lot of stuff, but fundamentally they're saying you shouldn't have alkaline because it's going to burn you and cause problems. They have completely ignored the fact that alkaline water is really not very alkaline. The reason I eat greens, not 9 kale a day, but because the reason I eat greens is that greens are also a powerhouse of all sorts of other things, vitamins, minerals, everything. And I know when I eat greens that my detox continues, that I feel good, that I have energy, I have vitality, and I drink my alkaline water. So let's look at where we are with James and Markus's video, because let's talk about the evolution of this philosophy. We had people who did videos and everything else and got on the net and they put out the alkaline diet food chart, and you know they were doing the best they could. And then some German scientists came along and they said, well, let's just have a look at what these acids do when they come into the body, and they modified the food chart, and that's the one that I use now, to say, well, if it's a certain sort of acid coming into the body, it's going to have a certain effect on the body, so we're going to rate the foods in that way. Again, however, it's my belief personally that all of the miracle cures that you see from alkaline diet people are as much to do with A, the fact they've gotten off the SAD, the standard American or Australian diet, B, they start drinking a good amount of water, C, they have good food in the form of more greens than they've ever eaten before, and suddenly they're being given, you know, they've opened Pandora's box on all the beautiful nutrients, trace elements and vitamins, etc. that they've never had before. Suddenly they're healthy and they go, oh, I follow the alkaline diet and it must be because it's alkaline. No, alkaline is really simple, really simple. You just need potassium, calcium, magnesium, sodium. That's all, really simple. And there is a theory that goes around relating to this that you can't get it unless it's in a natural form. I'm sorry, you're wrong. And the perfect example, as James in the video points out, is salt. Salt is a natural mineral in its crystalline form. Can you absorb salt? Of course you can. Therefore, can you absorb other minerals in their natural crystalline form, not their natural form? Of course you can. So taking my 4 salts, of course I absorb them. You don't have to have it in a natural form. In fact, natural usually means, let's take broccoli as an example. The alkaline minerals are in the broccoli. They are encased in the broccoli. The broccoli is the transporter of your alkaline minerals. They are not a different form of mineral. A mineral is always a mineral, and they will alkalise as they are supposed to do. Okay, so let me just come back to where we are after 18 years in this. And Markus and James video came some years ago. As I said, Markus had his electronic ionizer for 6 years, and he's trying to tell people, don't buy it, it's going to do terrible damage to you. Look, I've got to say, in 18 years, I have not found anybody who has been damaged by that water, okay? I've seen probably 15,000 people now who are on the water, and it hasn't hurt anybody. So this idea of it damaging people by it being too strong, I'm sorry, I don't wear it. And what I mentioned before about, is it a true alkalinity or is it just a high pH alkalinity? That's another thing. So we had the alkaline diet people getting excited and telling us their story about alkalising, you know, which meant get off meat. We had James and Markus saying, look, no, don't alkalise with water, that's really bad because it's going to burn you. They are, in my mind, 2 parts of an argument. You know, always with arguments you'll get someone will say something which is radical, some other people, so they'll have to say something which is in opposition to the first one. In the middle we have ourselves, and my fundamental philosophy is that we are a balancing mechanism. We live in harmony when we are healthy. So yes, we have aspects of ourselves which, as James pointed out, are acidic by nature, and yes, we have aspects of ourselves which, as Dr. Robert O. Young and many other people say, is alkaline by nature. It does not mean that they fight each other or have to be overcome one another. Our wonderful, magnificent body does the work for us. So let's have a look at where we are now with this whole progression of thought and ideas. The electronic ionizer people are still saying they alkalise. They're still saying their water microclusters. They're still saying that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And they're selling lots and lots of machines to people who in this big wide world don't have access to people telling them different. The technology that are used in the electronic ionizers is old. It's electrolysis, and that's how they get the high pH. It wastes half the water that's used, but it's still popular. It's still popular because of the marketing machine, not particularly because of the technology. There is much better technology out which is producing the secret ingredient that the big MLMs didn't even know about, and I didn't know about until I was helped out by a young biochemist from Boise, Idaho. The secret ingredient which was really helping us, which was really creating all of those marvellous testimonials that you see on the internet, was not the alkalinity. No. It was molecular hydrogen, H2. And I have to thank, and I thank him every day, young Tyler LeBaron, the young Idaho scientist who found this. He had, just like Markus, had bought multi-level marketing water ionizer, and he was not happy with what they told him. He couldn't see it from a scientific point of view, so he began his own investigations, which took him all of the way to Japan, where he spent time with scientists at Nagoya University who have already been studying molecular hydrogen in water for the last 10 years. We knew nothing about it, and we, the people who had the systems and believed in the system, were still saying, oh, it's the alkalinity. It wasn't. It was the molecular hydrogen. So what do I do every day for my molecular hydrogen? Well, I have my own natural water filter and hydrogen infusion system. I get my a glass of water from that. I'm lucky because I'm in the business. I have a jug that increases the hydrogen. I put that water in there, which is already hydrogenated. I put the water in the jug, I cook it up for 5 minutes in the jug, I take it out of there, and I also have molecular hydrogen tablets, so I get my little glass bottle, I put 2 tablets in there. I put my already super hydrogenated water into the glass bottle, put on the cap, wait 5 minutes and drink it. Why do I do all that? Well, I do it because I love it, but I also do it because here's the great thing about molecular hydrogen. There are over 1,000 scientific studies, Marcus, and you can ignore them if you like. They're on almost every health condition you can think of, and they all show that molecular hydrogen is a most unusual thing. It's the smallest molecule in the universe. It comes into your body, down your throat, through your stomach. It goes anywhere it wants to go in the body, and if it finds something it can react to, it will. If it doesn't, it continues out. It goes up through it does go through the blood-brain barrier, unlike the claims of the other guys. It does have amazing anti-inflammatory. It's a specific antioxidant. It is anti-apoptotic. It is anti-allergenic, and it's amazing. I'm 71. I love it. I love what it does for me, and I have it every single day. So what we're seeing now is an evolution from the old alkaline water ideas, which Markus and James seem to be still arguing about, to a totally new idea, which is unlike the old alkaline ideas, absolutely rooted solidly in science, and it's available to all of us. So I'd just like to thank Markus and James for stirring the pot, because in stirring the pot, even if their knowledge is, well, let's say it's, I suppose the right word to use is dated. No, it's not just dated. What they're saying, but the premise is wrong. The premise is wrong. The premise is that alkaline water is so strong it'll do all this damage, and the truth is it's not. So again, thanks for listening. I hope this makes more sense to you, and I hope that you can learn more for it. If you'd like me to answer any other queries about this subject, feel free. I'm here to help, and I really love to see people's minds open up to this concept.